to me, I think, is what's going to open up next year. Yeah, that's my opinion. Is the outfield's going to be where you might want to pay the market premium, and you'll have the glutton of either low-priced middle infielders later on that are worth more, or corners will stick again in the bottom.
Well, as the season went on, and you needed players for your team, most teams needed outfielders, and you scoured the waiver wire. The outfielders position is there's so many players, but it just felt so shallow that I think you need to go deeper in the outfield earlier on, just because it just seems like there's a huge drop off in the on the wires, like ridiculous.
Yeah, outfielders need to be taken earlier. I think you can always find a corner infield late, and I think next year you're going to be able to find the middle infield late in a mixed league. Outfielders are what you need to really look for earlier and middle of the draft. I think that's when you want to stock up on that. Did you agree with that, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm thinking about it because also somehow I was able to find middle infielders, guys who are getting playing time. Again, I'm focusing on AL only a lot, right? But Owen Miller was getting some pretty regular playing time, and Yu Chang found some, and Andy Ibanez shows up, right? Like the second base, third base, like they find playing time. The outfield is more challenging because you see more platoons out there than you see in the infield on the grass, because it's more about like we need the big bat. Doesn't matter so much with the glove. So then you run into Austin Slater, Steven Duggar issues, and you just I don't want to have anything to do with that. I really do want those outfielders that are going to play every day. So yeah, I think as of now, again, it's early, and we're going to be able to see things from 20,000 feet. Not today, because we're still looking back at this past Sunday. But that sounds okay to me. I just keep feeling like maybe you don't spend so much on pitching. I don't know. It's just just have this vibe. It's like, I get what you guys are saying about try to get that ace, but I want to get it at a good price. I think I got burned by Shane Bieber in Tout Wars. I spent $35, which felt like
I trust the process, not
discount.
the results. It was the wrong guy. You could have gone for Cole. I mean, you happened to get Bieber in that one.
Well, because Cole was $43 and Bieber was $35.
Right.
I wasn't going after Bieber. He was valued at 40,
but
38,
nobody
39.
But nobody had a $10 difference in Cole versus Bieber. That 10 looked really good. It's trust the process, not the results. You happen to get the wrong guy. That's what happens.
Yeah.
But we had Luis Castillo in a league that burned us. Okay, it's the wrong guy for one league. That league we finished fourth. Most of the other leagues we did well. It's trust the process, not the results. Just a general, just the last part of this segment, just to throw it out there to you. Are there any other? What do you think is a real big success that you had this year, or maybe a failure this year, or something that you'll do differently in 2022?
The failures. I feel like I was chasing steals in Tout Wars. I mean,
Okay.
I had it's a tough draft. I drafted Buxton, I drafted Louis Robert, I drafted Eloy Jimenez, I drafted Shane Bieber, I drafted Aaron Hicks, and the whole season, I ended up and I was able to finish seventh, which felt like a huge success, living down at 13th and 14th for so much of the season, dealing with the injuries. But I never had enough speed. And that's part of what my thought process is, because I think I had 2 points in stolen bases over the course of the season. And I think I tried to pay. Back of the draft, I wanted Elvis Andrus to bring me some steals, and that just didn't work out. So it's like, although Louis Robert would have stolen 25 bases, and Buxton, if he had stayed healthy, would have stolen 25 bases. But I still felt light in stolen bases coming out anyway, and it's hard to come back from that. It's just tough to come back.
Ruvain, how about you? A success or failure, or something you do different?
Well, success. I think we were both able to manage our teams pretty well, because our teams were pretty deep, and we were able to get through a lot of injuries, and we balanced the team, and it was very good, and I was great. I think the problem that I run into is the exact same thing I had a problem last year, and it's just a complete random draw, and that's that I had too many players from one team. Last year, I had too many Cardinals. They missed too much time. They had too many delays, too many shortened games. I missed a lot of stats. This year, yes, I'm a Met fan, but we had too many Mets on the team. It just happened to be that was the worst time to have these Mets. We thought Alonso was going to have a big year. We had McNeil for average. We had Dom Smith coming off a big year. We had Edwin Diaz hoping for a big year. And you know what? They had so many doubleheaders. We lost so many possible innings for them to play. that it was just so hard to catch up. And not only that, the rainouts were so early in the season that by the time they got to the rainout, to the makeups, a lot of them were injured or the season was over already, and it just really didn't matter anymore. So we lost a lot of time. And again, it just happened to be where they were valued, where we valued them, and it happened to be that we had a lot from one team. I think we have to, I guess, call it diversify our portfolio a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think we diversified across all leagues. Just that one league, for some reason, it came up. But listen, you can diversify, and if you have to get a discount on some players to take too many on the same team. I'll give you a success and a failure of mine. The success, and I'll say it because I want to just call attention to my volatility metrics. But Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette, I had registered. I have three volatility metrics. Some interprojection, standard deviation, skew, and some categorical risk. Bichette was low risk, low risk, low risk. Upside. Like all my volatility metrics said, wow, this guy actually is probably better than the projections even say. This guy has a very tight projection. There's no way this guy is going to bust. And when you're doing your pricing, not only do I say, well, Bichette is worth $30, so I'm gonna, and that's what my valuation said, 30. But when you see projections are so tight and are so low risk, it tells me that I have to add a risk adjustment, and for his risk adjustment is positive. So I said, all right, well, I can actually spend $3 extra on Bichette to guarantee it. Any guy who's low risk, that's why those 5 category guys, it's worth paying up for, not just for the stats, but for the risk. I mean, you take a guy like Mark Hanna. Mark Hanna does a little bit of everything, and he's nowhere near. He's all the way down in the middle of the draft, but he has runs. He has stolen bases. He hits homers. He can have a bad year in homers, but he'll still give you value elsewhere. He can have a bad year in stolen bases, but he still provides the runs. Taking guys who are more categorically spread, it reduces the risk of your portfolio, and that's just such an important thing to note, and I think I did that well. In terms of failure, I think I can improve on the waiver wire. Not that I do a bad job with the waiver wire, but I don't have time to go so deep to get who's going to be the next guy, who do I take the stab at. Like I was listening to Phil Dussault, who had a great year in the NFBC, talk, and he grabbed Ranger Suarez 2 weeks earlier before anybody for $2. Like I got to figure out how to do that.
But that goes back, Ariel. That goes back to your first question, right? Because as you were talking, I was thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
Like knowing the players, not Ranger Suarez, because that came out of nowhere for everybody. Geez, and how amazing was he?
Yeah.
But there's, I keep trying to get you to play Dynasty, don't I? Or keeper leagues, and you're like, no, I'm not going to do it, right? But here's why I think it's so important to actually, for a player as successful as you, Ruvain, you as well, because it gives you a wider understanding of the players, not just the players that are in the major leagues right now, but the prospects and the kids who are coming up. So someone like the guy I keep thinking about, like Austin Riley, who could have guessed? Well, James Anderson's been talking about Austin Riley for 3 years. In our original RDI draft, maybe 4 years, our original RDI draft, Austin Riley was on our list and we took him, okay? So what does that do for you? When you have a full understanding of the prospects, that way you're not as surprised necessarily when a player who has struggled in the majors finally starts to step into it, right? So there's one thing to know Wander Franco and Julio Rodriguez and Jared Kelenic, sorry guys, but what about the guys who are in the 40 to 50 range, the 50 to 100 range, the 100 to 200 range? If you're watching them as they're coming up and you're following them in that way, when they come up on the wire, you know to be looking for them. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that might, your immensely talented game that you have, it could only lift it for you. So to play in a dynasty league, even if you're not great at it, it gives you so much else when it comes to the redraft world.
Are you inviting me to the $4,000 buy-in dynasty league? Is that why you're?
I don't have a $4,000 buy-in league. That sounds pretty interesting. I have to say.
But point taken. And I just said it right now that's a hole in my game, and it's mostly because of the time, because it requires more time, and I do the most I can with my time. But that's definitely a hole that would be worth filling. Can
I ask you guys a question about a player that people seem to be so terribly in love with, and I just kind of like, but I'm not so in love with?
Sure.
I saw a player, I see the new pitcher rankings coming out, and Sandy Alcantara is being talked about as a top 10 pitcher. I just don't know that that's right. I mean, right? I mean, I'm asking. I'm not saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Like, is he really a third round pick at this point, based on the year that he had? But if he's a top 10 pitcher, and I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying that he's not great. I'm not saying there isn't great upside. I love the stuff. I mean, I watch the stuff. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at how can I hit this? You know, would I be able to hit this? Well, none of them. I couldn't hit any of them. But, you know, the difference between watching him or watching Mike Minor, clearly Alcantara's got great stuff. But is he really a top 10 pitcher? Is there anything in the profile that suggests that, or in the stats that suggest that? Because I own him in a Dynasty League. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ruvain.
His volume. In 2019, he pitched 197 innings. This year, he pitched 205 innings. And look at those strikeouts. It went from 150 to 201 this year. That's the jump that you're looking for. That's the jump you're looking for.
But so do you really think he could be a top 10 pitcher?
I think he could. I think he's a sleeper to become a top 10 pitcher. I don't think he's going to get enough. I mean, yes, wins are a complete variable, but you need to have a certain amount of wins to be a top 10 pitcher. Yes, DeGrom is different because if you can pitch with an subpar sub 2 ERA and a sub 1 WHIP, then that's fine. But nobody's going to do that. So Henry Alcantara is not going to do that. So he's going to need to win 15 games or 16 games along with those 200 strikeouts to be a top 10 pitcher. Is he going to do that on the Marlins? I don't know. That's the problem. He needs for that next step. He needs a good team. He had 15 losses this year, 15 with an ERA of 3.19 and 107. If he can turn 5 of those losses into wins, he is a top 10 pitcher.
But you know what? Okay. The answer actually doesn't matter because from you saying this, he's overvalued. And if people are going to pick him in the top 10, to turn a profit on him, he's got to be what, in the top 8? The answer is no. The answer is he's just, don't waste your time on him. He's overvalued.
Well, and I'm not saying that he can't be a top 10 pitcher. It's something that I'm noticing from people who I think are great. Like, I think the list I saw was an amazing guy, knows his stuff better than almost anybody. But it was just one thing that kind of struck me because he was taken in the 8th round. I bought him. I got him in different leagues this year, and he was good. He was good, really good, but not. I don't know, just not to that level. And I think that, Ruvain, what you said is very indicative because talking about the 3.19 ERA with a 1.07 WHIP and having that volume it's very impressive. So thanks. You know,
he was a top 20 pitcher this year, so I can definitely.
And
see
he's young.
I think
26. Yeah.
Yeah, I think top 10 is pushing it, but top 15, top 20 for sure. But I think that, again, I'm less interested about what he's going to be, or I'm more interested in, is there a profit to be had on him? And I think the answer is no.
Yeah,
I think
people are
going to
addressing that high. You're not going to get that profit. You want to get that lower guy. So you want to get maybe the second guy in the Marlins. Maybe you want to take a chance on that Sixto Sanchez, or maybe you want to take a chance on the Max Mayer coming up. And
you can't bank on him for wins, as Ruvain said. So if you're going to bank on a number 2 starter, you're not going to bank on him for wins. So it's a problem right away. Unless you bank on him for good ratios, which he has good ballpark. So the answer is he's definitely usable, but probably way too overpriced is what's going to happen.
Well, that's why that was my question.
Yeah. All right, let's quickly do the fantasy MVPs for the year, and I'm going to say that the fantasy MVP for the year will be.
You're going to take Cedric Mullins III?
It's Cedric Mullins, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's Cedric Mullins III. That's it. That's the closest I'll come to the impression tonight.
You taking Haniger out for Cedric Mullins III?
That's what you said. That's what you said.
Haniger was great this year too, by the way.
Yes, he was. But I was in that particular moment. I was right that the right play was to draft, even with the bulk, with Hicks going down, with Buxton going down, and with Eloy going down, and with Louis Robert going down. I mean, talk about an outfield that was decimated by injury. That was what that Tout Wars team was. And had I had Cedric Mullins III, had I taken him in the second round of the reserve draft, which is when I wanted to take him, and I should have because that's what I wanted to do, then it would have been that would have served quite nicely. I think he was certainly, but I'm going to put another guy out there too because Cedric Mullins III is the obvious choice. I got a couple other names that I want to add to that list on the hitter side. I'm going to say Shohei Ohtani because I got him in I got him either if I didn't get Stanton, who I had big high hopes for this season. I really thought Stanton was going to